I'm someone who has never touched a Silent Hill game in his life up until today, and I could not have been ready for what I experienced. All I knew going in was that Silent Hill was very similar to Resident Evil in some ways, and even after playing, I would agree it's very similar to mostly Resident Evil 7 for me, with that idea of not fully knowing what's actually going on. There are very few games that made me look at the ending of a game and really have to take a step back and think about what I just watched. But Silent Hill 2 was one of those games, and I really didn't expect it, as once again, I saw it as a Resident Evil clone. The game's psychological aspects reminds me a lot of the game Mouthwashing, which if you have not played, I highly recommend it. The game is even made in that PS1 style that kind of fits that Silent Hill vibe. After playing Mouthwashing and watching multiple videos on it, I remember thinking I want more, but unfortunately I didn't really know any other games like it. That was 3 months ago, and finally a new game was able to fulfill that urge that I've been wanting for so long. Also, before we go any further, I just want to say that this video is going to be my perspective on the story of Silent Hill 2, and not all of the information in this will be correct, as I wanted to say what I got out of the story after playing through it for the first time. I'm aware that it would be easy to just do a little research to fact check myself, but that's kind of not the point of this video. I'm sure there's many other videos out there breaking down the entirety of the story in every single detail, which I will be watching after I make this video. If any of you have been longtime fans of Silent Hill, I'm pretty sure you already know everything about its story, so look at this more as a new person's experience with one of my favorite games I've ever played now. I don't think I've ever related to a video game character as much as James Sunderland. Now, I know how that sounds if you know the story, but he feels so incredibly real with just how he deals with things, and to just get to the point, the way he deals with his wife's sickness. Any disease or illness that can slowly take away you or anyone you love's life is one of the most terrifying things that I believe can happen to someone. It's something always in the back of my mind whenever I think towards the future. And so as humans do, we think of these horrible things that happen. Sometimes we think of the horrible things that we are capable of. The way James loves his wife unconditionally, but slowly over time actually starts to hate her for it, is heartbreaking. And while heartbreaking because it's very clear that it's not Mary's fault in any way for what's happening to her, I can see where James is coming from. I mean, if you were to lose your wife in the same way as James was, you would obviously be there for her at first. But what happens when she pushes you away and gets angry at you? What happens when years have gone by and you have your own sexual desires, which, while are for sure selfish, it's something everyone has. Ignoring them just makes things worse for James, but acting upon them or even thinking about them makes him feel guilty because he believes he needs to stay loyal to her, as we all want to be. And that right there is exactly why James starts hating Mary, because he feels like he is trapped with her. James wants to move past it, doesn't want to deal with the pain, but he can't because Mary is keeping him stuck in his own psychological prison. And so he finally decides to take action and use a pillow to smother his own wife to death. One misconception I had while playing this game was that she asked James to kill her, but it is much more likely that she stated some of her suicidal thoughts, like, "The hospital should just let me die." This hurts even more to hear when James finally admits that he killed her, not because she asked, but instead because he wanted it. He was tired of her and felt helpless. The only way he saw out of the situation was to kill her and to end it all. This is one of my biggest fears. Having someone you love turn on you after years of being happy together, it really shows that no matter how much you think you know a person, you never really know them until they're put into certain situations. And what's even more horrifying is that you can become the thing that you fear the most without even realizing it. The town of Silent Hill is very clearly a place that draws people who are dealing with an immense amount of trauma and don't know how to deal with it. In a lot of ways, Silent Hill is almost like a hell, where lost souls are forced to confront the sins of their past and either are unable to forgive themselves, becoming trapped inside, are lost inside the evils they've committed and go insane, or somehow are finally able to overcome their past, maybe not necessarily forgive themselves, but are finally able to move past it and continue their life outside of Silent Hill. These three outcomes are shown to us throughout the game, with Angela, a victim of sexual abuse from her father for years, which she finally has enough and ends up killing him. Most of us watching would agree with her decision, but for Angela, of course, this is a devastating moment, which she didn't want to do, but was forced to kill someone that she loved. I know it's a horrible thing to think about, but she obviously loved her father, even after all the pain he puts her through. Something I really enjoy about Silent Hill is that all the creatures in it are depicted differently in everyone's eyes. So while Angela sees her father, we, as James, see him for what he is, a disgusting monster who tortured his own daughter for years. Angela even says, "I should have let it happen. Maybe I deserved it." And once again, this game with its heavy themes really shows us why this isn't a traditional horror game, where the horror comes from the creatures and gore, but instead it tackles this psychological horror, which to me is much more scary than anything else you could show me. Seeing a victim of one of the most disgusting crimes that can be committed blame herself, again, really hits hard for me, and what hurts even more is that Angela gives into Silent Hill believing she deserves to be punished and will never leave the fog that she once entered. And while not confirmed for sure throughout the game, I think it's pretty clear that at some point she ends up ending her own life, considering she wanted the knife to do it, but James didn't give it to her, meaning that at some point in the future she might do the same thing, just in a different way. While an extremely depressing ending to her character, it again shows us that our world, that at times, while it can seem perfect, it has the worst kinds of things imaginable hidden among us every day, and some of us will never be able to overcome the evil things that happen to us. Before we move on from Angela, though, I think I have to mention how she is also here to mirror the side of James's guilt that he has about thinking or actually cheating on his sick wife, which he barely visits and eventually ends up killing her. Angela shows that James could end up just like her, continuously blaming himself and unable to move on until the town wins, guilt wins, and from what I assume, eventually end his own life as well. Eddie is an overweight young man who, when we first see him, is pathetic, crying and throwing up on the floor of a random bathroom. Eddie was bullied for most of his life for being overweight, which caused him to suffer from several mental problems, which one day causes him to snap, shooting his bully in the leg and killing their dog. When he arrives at Silent Hill, he also feels guilty for what he's done, and it eats away at him, making Eddie another victim to the fog. But instead of feeling deserving of what happened to him, he instead knows he doesn't deserve it. No one deserves to be bullied for their appearance, and so he goes mad to the fog, killing anyone who he believes is making fun of him. I'm not sure if the two people we see him standing over were killed by him, but regardless, we can see that he takes pleasure in shooting their corpses because he loves the feeling like he has power over people, just like they did over him for all of his life. I think it is also a cool detail that we as James see the corpses as human corpses, but to me at least, I feel that Eddie most likely saw them as some kind of monster that probably looked like meat. That's why we fight him in a meat locker, because Eddie sees all life as meaningless, just more walking piles of meat that don't mean anything because eventually they'll all be dead. Eddie even tries to kill James despite him being kind to Eddie the entire game because he is mentally unstable and so deeply consumed by Silent Hill that he believes everyone is against him, even the ones who are trying to be helpful. Eddie says that it doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, or what you do. Once you're dead, you're just a corpse, and a corpse can't lie. Eddie is also a reflection of another outcome of James, where he could feed into that violent side of himself that he knows is there. What if James kept going with the killings? I mean, he's able to take out all these creatures around him. Clearly he has the capabilities. What if James were to kill anyone he thought was a burden to someone else? It is clear though that James does not like violence and only acts on it when he finds it absolutely necessary. One thing I noticed is that James has consistently good aim throughout the entire game. Once he has to fight Eddie, he's incredibly shaky and nervous. I really like this small detail that shows us James doesn't want this. He wouldn't be here if he didn't feel any type of regret, and so when he's forced to kill Eddie in self-defense, he can barely even find the words of what to say. At this point, James has killed so many of these creatures, but finds it easy because they are clearly not human. But when he's forced to fight back against Eddie, his hands are shaking, probably the same way they were shaking when he used them on Mary. Earlier I mentioned how the monsters reflect your own depictions of problems you are having in your life. When playing through the game, I thought this was to really show this place is hell. All of James' monsters represent something that he's dealing with. You have the mannequins, which are lady legs, which is supposed to be sexual. The nurses who have no face but are dressed in a sexual way, showing James doesn't care about their face, he just wants their body because it's all he thinks about with Mary being bedridden. The lying figures are a representation of Mary's internal suffering. And Pyramid Head, which has become the face of this franchise, is James's representation of judgment, coming to judge him for his horrendous crime. This becomes very clear when after killing Eddie, a second Pyramid Head appears to punish James, but when James has the willingness to fight back, it's a metaphorical way of James slowly forgiving himself. This is also why when you pick up the two eggs on the Pyramid Head corpses, where there is one rusty, which I think depicts Mary as it's the more disgusting one, mirroring the action of killing his wife for his own greed, and the physical attractiveness of the egg is gross, the same way he saw Mary. Then there's the Scarlet Egg, which I think represents Eddie as it's coated in a blood red film showing that Eddie was corrupted by his actions. The egg is also very nice looking, at least compared to the rusty egg, which I believe symbolizes James's ability to recognize that killing Eddie in self-defense is nowhere near as bad as killing Mary was. It's also the correct egg door to go through if you want to have a good ending, which I think is a great way for James to recover. By forgiving himself for Eddie, it leads him on the path. Only by forgiving himself how he had to kill Eddie can he possibly take the necessary steps towards forgiving himself for what he did to his own wife. I wasn't sure while playing what all the monsters represented, but after finishing the game, it became more clear to me on how everything in this game has a meaning. Even Maria is supposed to be a perfect copy of Mary, but with no sickness and is extremely sexual, even working in a strip club, being exactly what James wanted for all this time, but because of his extreme guilt does not engage with her in any flirtatious way. Silent Hill 2 knows how to make every little detail in the story fit into a bigger part of the overall story, and while I know I could go even more to depth with everything in this game does great, I won't, because someone way smarter than me could do that way better for you. Instead, I want to talk about one more part of this game, and probably the most important, the ending. I know there are multiple endings in this game, but today I'm going to talk about the Leave ending, which was the one I got on my playthrough, and this ending was so emotional for me and is my canon ending. Mary is on her deathbed and is happy to see James and reveals that she asked him to kill her. James admits that it's not the reason why he did it though, and in reality he hates her. James wanted her out of the way so he could have his life back, but it is clear he has deep regrets about what he did, and Mary forgives him, giving him the final letter she wrote for him. In the letter, Mary tells us that she hates how she hurt James. Mary feels pathetic and ugly lying in the bed, slowly dying, missing James, even though she knows that James doesn't even want to look at her. Mary, when first diagnosed, lashes out on everyone she loves, especially James, but lets him know that regardless of what she had done to him in the past, she will always love him. And even with her life cut short, she wouldn't change anything about their life. She loves him. In her last request, she asks James to go on and live for himself and for others, just like how he did for her during their life together, because James made her happy. We see James walk out of Silent Hill with Laura, which, by the way, I still have no idea what's going on with Laura, so I don't really talk about her here, and then are given the credits to one of the most heartbreaking endings I have seen in any media. Now, I think a lot of people would say that this ending is sad, but for me, I think it's something a little more than that, because how I felt watching this scene for the first time was just the feeling of being depressed. My face, it went limp and my chest felt heavy with each breath. I watched as all the names of the people who worked on this beautiful game passed by, and I had to sit there and watch all of the credits in full while fully processing everything that I had just witnessed. Silent Hill 2 made me feel something I never thought I could feel from a video game, and that's because it just felt so real. Like I was watching two real people who loved each other have to be ripped away from each other because of something so frustrating and unpreventable as a sickness. Sickness is one of the worst ways to lose someone you love, and while we may not experience it every day, it is happening every day all around us, and all you can do, what any of us can do, is just hope it doesn't happen to us. A lot of games like to end in some big moment to define a character, but that's not what Silent Hill does. It doesn't feel like a grand ending to define the time we spent with our character, but instead feels like the depressing reality of real life. None of us know for sure what is going to happen, how long we have left, or how long our loved ones have left. All we know for sure is that we have right now, and that we should cherish every moment, every single moment we have with them, because if we don't, one day in the future, just like James, we will all be left alone in a cruel world that took away everything that is important to us. I have not personally dealt with the death of family members throughout my life, but I know that someday in the future I will have to deal with it, and that scares me. Whether it's someone older than me, like a grandmother or parents, someone the same age as me, like a girlfriend or a friend, or, God forbid, someone younger than me, like my little brother. Or maybe it'll be me to be the first to go, and really I'm not too sure what will happen, but what I do know is I'll make sure that I spend every moment soaking it in and not holding back anything that I need to say, because none of us know what will come next. And so to anyone watching that has made it this far with me, I thank you. And before I end this video off, I want to ask you all to appreciate this time you have with the people most important to you, because once again, that's all any of us can do. Silent Hill 2 is a game I will never forget, and I've even considered replaying or maybe playing some of the other games in the franchise. I really enjoyed this game, and I could have made this video longer for sure, but I really wanted to talk about the depressing reality of the Silent Hill universe and just how much it relates to me in real life. I think about death a lot, and I think we all think about death, of course, but I think recently I've been thinking about it more than most would. It's a scary thing I haven't experienced it. Obviously, I see it in media all the time. You see it online, you hear about these horrible things that are happening, but you don't always get to experience it for yourself. I don't want to have to experience it for myself, but I know that that's just not realistic. I know that that's gonna eventually happen to all of us. I'm not sure what's gonna happen in my future. I really don't, and as I sit here making this video, I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing, but I know that I enjoy doing this. I enjoy playing games and sharing my experience with all of you who are here with me. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, leave a comment down below and tell me what you think about Silent Hill ending, because me personally, it was one of the most touching games I've ever played, and I want to thank my friend Morgan for recommending it to me, because I love this game, and after this video is out, I'm going to sit down and watch the rest of the 7 endings in this game. I know there's a lot, and the dog one seems pretty cool. If you have made it this far and you haven't played Silent Hill before, I don't know why you're even watching this video, but even though you might have got spoiled, I still do recommend you play it, because it's one thing for me to tell you about it, but it's another thing for you to experience yourself. But I'm talking too much. Before I leave, I should leave it with at least one joke. Why do they call him Pyramid Head? I just don't understand it, guys. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you call him Pyramid Head? Why? It does, it doesn't make any sense.